My name is Avery, and on a night in March, at 2 a.m., I got a call from a hospital in South Austin. You're the only reachable family contact. Your mother is in critical condition. I had been sending money to support my family for nearly 10 years. Tuition for my sister, car repairs for my brother, medication for my stepfather. But in that moment, I realized no one but me had ever truly taken responsibility. And the so-called family bond I thought I was preserving turned out to be nothing more than an invisible contract I never signed. If one day you find out your family doesn't really need you, just your bank account, what would you do? Leave a comment if you've ever felt like an obligation rather than part of a loving home. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because right after this, I'll tell you what happened when I froze the account they had depended on to survive for so many years. 8 years ago, I became the first person in my family to land a full-time job, a staff accountant position at a mid-sized construction firm on the west side of Austin. The salary wasn't high, but it was enough to live decently, pay down my student loans, and still have a little left to save. My mom, Marlene, called me the very day I got my first paycheck. "Sweetheart," she said in a voice as light as a breeze, "Jessica's about to start design school in Santa Fe, but the tuition is steep. I was thinking if everyone pitched in just a little." I didn't ask who everyone was. I only asked how much. $3,000. I sent it. No contract, no conditions, because it was Jessica, my half-sister, raised with me in a creaky little house on the outskirts of Tulsa. I still remember when she got bullied in 3rd grade. I was the one who stepped in front of those 3 big boys and yelled, even though my hands were shaking. Back then, I thought helping Jessica was natural. That's what families do. But the next month, Mom called again. "Chase got a flat tire. You know he works the night shift. That road's deserted and dangerous. I don't want anything bad to happen. Could you help him with the repair?" Again. This time, it was $600. I didn't hesitate. That became an unspoken cycle. Jessica's next semester tuition, Chase's gas money to get to work, medication for my stepfather, a man who never once called me daughter. Then it was utility bills, groceries for the holidays, internet, birthday gifts for distant relatives I'd never even met. Whenever I gently asked, "Mom, I'm a little tight on money this month," she'd sigh, long and deep. "Did you forget who raised you all those years? It's just a little. I'll pay you back, I promise." But paying back became a future that never came. I wasn't exactly naive. I knew I was being leaned on. But I kept thinking if I was patient enough, good enough, generous enough, one day they'd look back and simply say, "Thank you, Avery." That never happened. One early summer morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. It was the day of our quarterly board meeting, the biggest one of the season. I'd been assigned to present a budget restructuring proposal for a major project. The night before, I stayed up until 2 a.m. finalizing my slides. My coffee was still piping hot when my phone buzzed. It was Mom. I silenced the call. But 3 seconds later, a text appeared. "Electric bill this month is almost $280. They're about to shut it off. Please take care of it now." I bit my lip. In the past week alone, I'd already sent over $1,100. Extra tuition fees for Jessica, medications for Dad, and a deposit for Chase's personal development workshop he claimed was a life-changing opportunity. I set the phone down, trying to ignore it. But a minute later, Mom called again. This time, I answered. "I've got a pounding headache, Avery. Everything's hitting at once. Just take care of it real quick so you can focus on your meeting. I don't want to be a bother." I opened my banking app, transferred the money right there at the meeting table. My boss noticed. After the meeting, he pulled me aside. "Avery, I know you're dedicated, but when you're presenting to investors and you're glancing at your phone, tapping away, it doesn't look good." He said it kindly. But a few weeks later, I was replaced. That evening, I called home. I was tired but composed. Mom, I lost my job. I need a few weeks to get back on my feet. Silence on the other end. Then she asked, well, who's going to pay the electric bill this month? That's when I realized I was stuck in a role that was never written with a thank you line for me. After losing my job over a wire transfer mid-meeting, I finally did what I should have done long ago. I opened an Excel sheet and started logging every dollar I had sent to my family. At first, they were simple entries. Electric bill, June, $275. Extra tuition for Jessica, $1,200. Dad's medication, $168. But as the list grew longer, something inside me began to go cold. Not because of the money, but because these figures told the truth that had always been hidden behind silence. Figures, more than $28,000. Not one dinner with me at the table, not one handwritten birthday card. Not once did anyone ask if I had enough to live on, how I was handling my student loan, my health insurance, or life alone in a tiny apartment on the south side of the city. I tried saying no for the first time on a rainy afternoon. Mom texted, "Pharmacy says today's the deadline. Your dad can't sit in pain like this. Please send it soon." I replied, hands trembling like a kid skipping school for the first time. "Mom, I'm tight on money. I won't get paid until the weekend." Her response came in less than 3 minutes. "I carried you for 9 months, and now when I ask for one small thing, you get stingy?" I sat frozen, staring at those words like someone had flipped my heart upside down onto the table. They didn't call it guilt tripping. They called it family. After that came the questions I kept asking myself. Is it really love if it always comes with debt and shame? Then Chase had his turn. Late one night, after I'd finished submitting a tax report for a major client and was about to wash up for bed, my phone rang. "Hey, sis," Chase started, like he hadn't already made me cover his debts twice before. "I need a chance. I've got this dropshipping idea. My buddy's launching a Shopify store. I just need about $900 for a laptop so I can do the designs. I'll pay you back. You know I will." Oh, I knew. Knew it all too well. Last time Chase asked for startup money, I found out he blew it all at a small casino in Oklahoma City. I remember the photo on a friend's Instagram. Chase grinning at a poker table, beer in hand, captioned, "All in, baby." Back then, I thought the same thing. Yeah, all in. But it was my money. I didn't respond that night. But the next morning, my mom called. Not to ask if I was okay, not to remind me to eat breakfast, but, "Chase says you're being cold. He's your real brother, after all. If you can't help, at least be gentle. Don't make him feel like he has no one." Jessica was more subtle. She sent an email. Subject, "I need you like I've never needed anyone." The message was a 2-page letter about a serious psychological crisis that, according to Jessica, came from being pressured in childhood, constantly compared to me, and only loved conditionally. She said she was trying to heal and needed to attend a retreat at a psychological therapy center in California. At the end of the email was a link to a place called the Spirit Grove. Bright images, waterfalls, yoga on cliff edges, hot stone therapy, sound meditation, and even a juice detox service priced at $700 per week. I finished reading and sighed, not because I didn't believe she'd suffered, but because I knew they didn't need me to share their pain. They needed me to pay for it. I transferred part of it, nearly $1,500, marked emergency expense. That time, I said clearly, "Only this once, Jess." She replied immediately, with a heart emoji. "I knew you'd understand. You really are the light of this family." I opened the Excel sheet, added a new line, "Jessica, California Retreat, 1,487. And then, I marked it in red. The first line I ever highlighted, not to make it stand out, but to remember. Another piece of me had been taken without being named. I used to believe that the house on Oak Ridge Street was part of the love I gave my mom, a stable place she'd always dreamed of, after 2 divorces and a life of hardship. The day I put down the deposit for that house, my mom cried. She said, "Avery, I never thought I'd have a decent roof over my head without struggling for it." I stood in the yard, looking at the red brick house with a wide porch, a big maple tree shading the living room window, and I felt warm inside. The name on the deed clearly read, Avery Cooper, owner. But I never mentioned it. I always told her, "It's yours, Mom. Treat it like your own home." But then, one afternoon in early October, I received a letter from a bank. Not my bank. My name was on the documents, but I hadn't submitted anything. It was a mortgage loan application against the house. The amount, $32,000, approved 2 months prior. I couldn't believe my eyes. I called a financial advisor I knew. After verifying, he confirmed. The house is now under a second mortgage. The person who signed is Marlene Cooper, but the legal owner is you, which means you're responsible if they default. I sat frozen in my car for nearly 30 minutes, a chill spread from my palms up to my throat. I knew right away. And I also knew my mom didn't do it out of ignorance. She'd worked as a church treasurer for over 10 years. She knew which signatures held legal weight and who would carry the consequences. That evening, I drove to Oak Ridge unannounced. The porch light was still on, the door was unlocked. The smell of food wafted from the kitchen, rich with butter and black pepper. Chase was on the sofa, feet on the coffee table, playing video games. Jessica wasn't there. I knocked gently, then walked in. My mom turned from the kitchen, startled. "Avery?" "Oh, you didn't tell me you were coming. What's going on, sweetheart?" I didn't beat around the bush. I placed the file on the table. "Why did you mortgage the house? You know it's under my name." She stayed silent for a few seconds, then turned to Chase. "Go to your room." "But?" Chase leaned back lazily. "Don't bother. I already know. It's about that loan, right?" I looked at my mom. She shrugged and gave a sigh I knew all too well, the one that signaled she was stepping into her victim role. Chase got into a little trouble. Took out a high-interest loan. I just tried to help him out. I felt my blood rush to my face. By signing my name on a mortgage application? She rolled her eyes. "I didn't sign your name. I used the house. I live here. You don't. So why are you making it your problem?" I was speechless. That house, I'd bought it, paid it off with overtime hours, bonuses, the only savings I had after 10 years of work. But to her, it was simply the place she lived. Ownership? Irrelevant. I tried to stay calm. "You have 2 choices. 1, transfer the house back to me so I can sell it. Or 2, I bring in my lawyer." Her face changed instantly. "You would? You'd throw your own mother out? After everything I've done for you? After raising you? This is how you repay me?" My fists clenched, my voice trembled. "No one repays love by being dragged into debt they never agreed to, Mom." She burst into tears, then looked at me, eyes red and full of resentment. "If you take this house, I'll tell the whole family you abandoned your mother on her deathbed." It wasn't the threat. It was the realization that this had always been inside her. She was willing to craft a lie to protect the ones she truly favored. And I was never one of them. I left the house in silence. The very next day, I scheduled a meeting with my personal attorney. I brought every document: purchase papers, transfer history, records of unauthorized mortgage activity. He looked at me and asked, "Avery, are you prepared to take your mother to court?" I didn't answer right away. I walked home in the rain, and when I arrived, I found an envelope left at my door. It was a letter from Jessica. The paper was thin, the ink smeared from moisture. I recognized her handwriting. "I'm sorry, Avery. Mom hid this because she didn't want you to worry. but she has late-stage cancer. She doesn't have much time left. Please, don't make this worse. She's still our mom. I collapsed onto the doorstep, the cold letter in my hand. Cancer? No one had mentioned it before, and I didn't know if it was true or another emotional ambush. Again. I sat curled in a plastic chair in the emergency waiting room, coat draped over my shoulders even though the air conditioning had been off for over 30 minutes. The wall clock read 2:43 a.m., and the sound of doctors' footsteps echoed steadily down the white hallway. I had been there nearly an hour. When the nurse came out, I stood immediately. A petite woman, eyes shadowed behind thick glasses, looked at me and asked again to confirm. "You're the daughter of Marlene Cooper?" I nodded. She smiled gently, but didn't seem concerned. "We've stabilized her. She's not in a coma, just severely dehydrated and exhausted." I swallowed hard. "What about the cancer?" "My sister said she's in the final stage." The nurse looked at her clipboard, then shook her head. "There's no cancer diagnosis in the most recent medical records, no chemotherapy or specialist visits in the state system either. This emergency was due to digestive distress, combined with sedative and alcohol overdose." I'll never know when shadowy dark faded into the hallway. My eyes dropped to a small crack in the gray tile floor. A delicate curve like a lie, etched deep into the foundation. When the attending doctor arrived, he confirmed again, this time with a lower voice. "He doesn't have cancer, but her mental state seems unstable. There are signs she may be a danger to herself." I quietly thanked him, then asked for permission to see her. Room 314 was silent, save for the steady beep of a heart monitor. My mother lay turned toward the wall. The room smelled of antiseptic and the stale dampness of unspoken fatigue. I stood for a while, then pulled a chair closer and sat at her bedside. I didn't wake her. I pulled out my phone, opened my messages, and scrolled to Jessica's letter. The rain-soaked note I had once thought was a sincere apology. I hit call, 2 rings, then 3. She answered, her voice groggy, not the slightest hint of worry. "Avery? What is it?" "I'm at the airport." I kept my tone steady. "Jessica. Mom doesn't have cancer," I continued. "There's no medical file, no chemo, no specialists. She overdosed on sedatives and alcohol. She's in the hospital now." There was a sigh on the other end, like someone being interrupted during a massage. "You're there? Good. Mom said you'd come. So, that's taken care of." I froze. "Taken care of?" "I'm on vacation. Costa Rica. I need to recharge. That last retreat didn't quite do it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You wrote me saying Mom was dying. You told me not to escalate things because she didn't have much time. You staged a whole emotional script to force me to come back." Her tone was indifferent, like I was talking about a character in an old movie. "You didn't come to my wedding 3 years ago? Call it even. Anyway, I'm boarding now. Bye." Click. The phone screen reflecting my face in the soft blue glow of the hospital light. No anger, no tears. Just a strange realization. I wasn't surprised anymore. I called Chase next. No warning, he picked up after a single ring. "Avery, how's Mom? What did the doctor say?" His voice sounded rushed but not worried, like he was performing. I answered slowly. "She doesn't have cancer. It was an overdose, sedatives and alcohol." He gave a dry laugh. "Well, that's still dangerous, in a way. Are you gonna take care of it? You knew she wasn't sick. You knew, didn't you?" Chase didn't deny it. "Mom needed you to come. You've been out of touch too long." I opened my eyes, staring at my mother sleeping soundly, like someone who had never spun a single lie in her life. "You people don't need me. You just need me to be responsible." Chase lowered his voice, dropping the sarcasm. "You came back. So help Mom one more time. You don't want outsiders thinking you're the daughter who abandoned her mother, right?" I tightened my grip on the phone. Same formula. Guilt, duty, reputation. I set the phone down on the table, then turned toward my mother. The room was so quiet I could hear every steady beep of the heart monitor. I sat there, hands on my lap, back straight, no longer feeling like a scolded child or an adult trying to prove her devotion. For the first time in my life, I sat beside my mother's hospital bed without feeling like it was my job to save anyone. I'd left the hospital a little after 6 a.m., the sky still gray and the chill of morning dew clinging to my coat. I didn't look back. I didn't stop by her room again. Driving home in silence, I didn't turn on the radio or call anyone. Streetlights slowly faded as the dim light of dawn took their place. The world outside passed by like scattered memories, and I let myself drift into a memory I had never told anyone. It was the winter I turned 29. I was working at an audit firm in Dallas during year-end peak season. That week, I took on 3 new corporate accounts and often worked late. Some nights, I left the office at 1 a.m., ate a cold sandwich in the car, and got 3 hours of sleep before starting again. That week, I came down with a high fever. It lingered over 103 degrees, rashes on my skin and a racing heartbeat. I remember curling up on the living room couch, one hand holding a cold towel to my forehead, the other logging in to pay Jessica's second tuition installment, over $1,800. I had planned to delay it a week, wait for payday. But Mom called. "Jessica's crying. The school needs payment now. Can you help us out just this once?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "Mom, I have a fever. I went to the ER yesterday morning. The doctor said I need a few days of rest." She paused for a few seconds, then said flatly, "If you get sick now, who's going to take care of this family?" That line, spoken so casually, hit me like a slap of ice. I transferred the money, and that night I ended up back in the ER after fainting in the bathroom. No one visited, no texts asking how I was. But 2 days later, Mom texted, "Can you cover the electric bill? They're about to shut it off." I never told anyone about that hospital visit, or the long bruise beneath my wrist from hitting the sink when I passed out. I thought I was strong, but the truth was, I had been worn down to the bone. I got home around 8 a.m. The sky had cleared, sunlight filtering through the cream-colored curtains, casting soft light on the bookshelf where my half-wilted monstera plant sat. I made a cup of peppermint tea, placed it on the table, then opened my laptop. The Excel sheet loaded, familiar interface, rows of faded gray numbers. I added a new line. Date, March 23rd. Purpose, hospital bill for Mom. No cancer. Mouth, $0. Note, no longer reacting to save someone when I'm not whole myself. I scrolled to the bottom and typed a quieter line than any before. Total transferred, $54,217. I sat still for a moment, then took my first sip of tea. The cool flavor spread across my tongue and down my throat like a quiet reminder. Some softness has to come from yourself. I opened my banking tab. The auto-pay section showed a list of scheduled recurring payments. Gas, electric, tuition, insurance, Oak Ridge House Internet, Chase's loan. One by one, I clicked cancel. Each click felt like a quiet crack inside me. Not a crack from pain, but a break away from old chains. Next, I opened my contacts. Tapped Mom's name. Then Chase. Then Jessica. No blocks, no deletes. I turned off all notifications and moved them to not a priority, because I was no longer someone who jumps at every ring like it's an emergency. I texted my lawyer. I want to change the beneficiaries in my will, remove all existing names, add a fund for financially independent women. Less than 10 minutes later, he called back, calm voice. "Where would you like the fund to go?" I smiled, glancing at the plant in the kitchen corner, already sprouting new leaves. "I don't know yet. But I want to start with myself." I turned off my phone, returned to my small, sunlit, quiet room, and in a brief, still moment, I realized the silence I used to fear, that empty space where no one needed me, was actually the first gift I had ever given myself. About 2 weeks after I last sat in silence by my mother's hospital bed, I received a message from Caleb, an old friend who now worked in the credit control division at a major bank. We had once worked together in Dallas, and though our paths had diverged professionally, we stayed in touch, just enough to trust each other with delicate matters. The message was simple. Avery, there's a credit account opened under your name at the East Austin branch. You might want to look into it. My chest tightened immediately. I had never opened any account at that branch, and I was certain I hadn't applied for any credit products in the past 6 months. I called Caleb. He spoke quickly, voice low and measured. I can't give full details over the phone, but you should come to the bank. Bring your ID and account statements. I'll leave an internal copy for you to compare. They used your full name, social security number, and your old Oak Ridge address. Thanks. I'll come in the morning. That night, I dug through old records, copies of contracts, bank letters, torn sticky notes I'd once thrown into a document box. I settled on the floor, surrounded by paper stacks and folders, heart steady and cold. The next morning, I arrived at the bank as scheduled. Caleb met me in a consultation room and closed the door carefully. On the table was a printed account statement, my name, spelled correctly, with my ID number, and a signature that wasn't mine. The account had been opened nearly a year ago. Purpose listed as temporary financial assistance for a family member during a time of crisis. One name showed up repeatedly on the transaction list, Stephanie Jameson. It felt like someone reached into my chest and squeezed. Stephanie Jameson, Jessica's legal name, my half-sister. The same person I had once drained my savings for, sold my personal laptop for, canceled my one and only vacation for, to help her pay tuition. I asked quietly, how many transactions? Caleb turned to the page. 16 major ones, totaling more than $18,000. Most were direct transfers, some were cash advances, the rest went through third-party services. I closed my eyes. I didn't need to ask any further. I knew exactly what those third parties were. Retreats in California, healing programs in Arizona, and most recently, that Costa Rica getaway Jessica had mentioned like it was the most normal thing in the world. When I opened my eyes, Caleb was looking at me with concern. Do you want us to freeze the account and move forward legally? Not yet. I want a full statement, account opening forms, every related document. The more detailed, the better. And don't notify the other party. He looked a bit surprised, but nodded. What are you planning to do? I gave a faint smile, the kind of smile that comes from finally understanding the system that had been running around me for years without my knowledge. I'm ending a role I never agreed to play. That night, I spread every document out on the table, organized them. I printed 3 copies, one for the lawyer, one for the bank, and one that I placed on my desk, right next to the open Excel spreadsheet. I looked at the last line of the sheet. Total transferred, $54,217. Total fraudulent transactions, $18,000. Total thank yous, 0. I added a new line. Total damage caused by silence, not yet quantified. I didn't sleep that night, but not because I was worried, because I knew. Tomorrow, I would start something else. No longer the suffering daughter, but a woman who understands the value of transparency. I wouldn't sue. I wanted to give them the chance to face this in the open. No more hiding behind family ties. No more pretending it was obligation. Manipulation is not love, and I won't pretend otherwise anymore. I walked into the event hall at 7:13 p.m., right as a familiar jazz tune played, and everyone had nearly settled into their seats. No one noticed me at first. The lights were focused on the main table, where my mother, Marlene Cooper, sat glowing in a lavender dress and her old pearl necklace she only wore on important occasions. 60th birthday, a milestone, and for my mother, a chance to prove, once again, that she was still managing everything just fine, as she'd said over the phone to my aunt 2 weeks ago, unaware that I had overheard the call when she accidentally FaceTimed me. I stood quietly near the doorway for a moment, observing. Jessica was chatting loudly with 2 designer-clad friends at table 3. Chase, in a slightly wrinkled white shirt, was pouring champagne into the glass of an older woman I didn't recognize. Aunt Pam and Uncle Gerald were there, Pastor Harvey from the community church. Each person with their own story, their own drink, their own type of laughter. No one looked like they were in crisis the way their desperate messages had once claimed. I walked in. No one noticed until I reached the main table and pulled a beige folder from my purse. Only when I gently placed it on the table, paper softly hitting wood between swells of jazz, did heads turn. Jessica saw me first. Her brows lifted, clearly surprised. "You?" she whispered, sounding less confident than usual. My mother turned, her eyes flicking over me like a cold current. "Avery," she said, tasting the name like something left too long in the fridge. I said nothing. I opened the folder, pulled out a printed bank statement, a color copy of the Excel sheet, and finally, 3 screenshots of the fraudulent transfers made from the account opened under my name. "Chase," I said calmly, voice clear. "Can you tell everyone here what you've spent nearly $18,000 on over the past 6 months?" Chase laughed shortly, a mocking sound. "I don't know what you're talking about." I held the paper a little higher. "Transactions made from a credit account opened in my name at Riverbank's East Austin branch. An account verified using Mom's ID. Primary recipient, Stephanie Jameson." Jessica's face went pale. Someone at the back table whispered, "Who's Stephanie? Sounds like Jess's real name." I turned to my mother, voice still soft. "You once told me not to come back to this family. That was the day you mortgaged the house under my name to cover Chase's debts, without asking me even once." Mom stood up abruptly, chair scraping behind her. "Avery, this is my birthday. This is a family matter. How could you—" "I didn't come to celebrate, Mom. I came for the questions no one in this family ever wanted to answer." I laid the Excel sheet on the table. "In the past 3 years, I've transferred over $54,000 to this family. For school, medical bills, car repairs, and even Jessica's so-called healing retreats. Only, the last one was in Costa Rica. 4-star resort, hot stone massages, organic food." Jessica gripped her wine glass tighter. I met her gaze and asked, "Do you call that therapy or a vacation in disguise?" She whispered, "You don't understand." "No, you don't understand. Because you've never lived a day where the only time your name gets mentioned is when someone needs money. Mom called me ungrateful. But who forged my name for a loan? Who used my info to open credit accounts without asking? And who's sitting here now, smiling, raising glasses, as if nothing's wrong?" Chase stepped forward, voice cold. "So what now? You gonna expose us? Embarrass Mom? What are you trying to do? In front of the whole family?" "I'll let them see for themselves." I pulled from my coat a stack of photos, printouts from the bank security cameras. Jessica withdrawing cash from an ATM. Chase signing for a cash advance. My mother handing over ID documents with my name on them. "I'm not doing this out of hate," I said, softly. "I'm doing this for the truth. For everyone in this family who ever sat across from me, held my hand, and said, 'We love you.'" I left everything on the table. Behind me, no apologies. Not even a whisper asking me to stay. Only my mother's voice. Shaky, cold, familiar. "You'll regret this, Avery. One day you'll regret it." I didn't look back. I didn't need more proof to know. I was no longer part of the story they told themselves. I got a text from my mom the next morning while I was brewing coffee in my small kitchen. Please don't make this bigger than it already is. I was wrong. But don't take this to court. Then a missed call. Then another message, longer, the words strained. You don't understand, Avery. I didn't do it to hurt you. I was just scared of losing everything. If you sue, we'll lose the house. Chase won't recover. I'm begging you. We're family. I sat down, fingers still warm from the mug. Eyes locked on the words, we're family. I used to believe that. So much that I let my own logic erode under the weight of that word. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I opened the leather folder tucked in my desk drawer. Inside was everything: bank statements, photographs, forged signatures, Excel printouts, and the confirmation letter from Caleb. I placed them on the table, flipped through each page like an auditor reviewing a file one final time before signing off. Around 11 a.m., I called my mom. She answered almost immediately. Avery? Her voice was hoarse, clearly from crying. I won't sue. A beat of silence. Then a breath. Relieved. Like someone escaping a sentence. Thank you, sweetheart. I knew you still cared. I cut her off. It's not because I care. It's because I don't need revenge. I need boundaries. You used my name to take out debt, lied to the bank, opened a fake credit account with my info, sent money to Chase, and covered for Jessica under a different name. I could sue, and you know that. On the other end, silence. No denial, no excuses. I continued, voice steady, slow, and calm. I've sent everything to my lawyer, not to press charges, but to remove my name from all shared assets. I don't want to be listed on the Oak Ridge house. I don't want to be tied to any loans. And I want you, Chase, and Jessica, from today forward, to cut all contact. She gasped. You're talking like, you're not part of this family anymore. I looked out the window. The sky was clear. A sprig of lavender on the balcony swayed gently in the morning breeze. It's not that I'm walking away from the family. It's that this family was never really mine. Her voice trembled. What you're saying, it hurts. So what did you think I felt for the past 10 years? Being remembered only when there was a bill to pay? I let the silence settle fully before finishing. You don't need to feel guilty. Don't need to cry. You just need to understand that from now on, I'm no longer the one cleaning up after your mistakes. I hung up before she could say anything else. An hour later, I sent an email to my lawyer, attaching the full set of documents with these specific instructions. Submit a formal request to relinquish ownership of the Oak Ridge house, transferring full legal title to Marlene Cooper. Confirm the closure of all joint accounts, including any bank, credit, or transaction records involving my name. Update my personal will to remove all names of individuals involved in identity fraud or financial manipulation. Request credit protection measures. Freeze my profile with all 3 major credit bureaus to prevent any future misuse. When I clicked send, I felt something inside me ease. I had finally spoken aloud what I'd silently endured for years. That silence is not the same as forgiveness, and kindness does not mean I lack boundaries. With a fresh cup of tea in hand, I stepped toward the balcony and opened the door. The spring air drifted in, cool but not harsh. I stood there quietly, watching the sunlight land on the windowsill, thinking about all the things I had let go of, without needing to prove anything or win. A few months later, I moved into a small apartment by Lake Travis, on the west side of Austin. 3rd floor, balcony facing the water, where every morning I could hear the swallows gliding over the roof tiles and see the sunlight shimmer like it was breathing. I stopped turning on notifications, stopped checking messages the moment I woke up. Life no longer revolved around the urgency of apologies, explanations, or demands. Life now was mornings that began with the soft scratching of my kitten at the bedroom door. I called her Rye because she was the same pale gray as early season grain, and the scent of fresh mint I grew in a terracotta pot by the kitchen. I grew green onions, parsley, a few little tomato plants. Not much, but enough to keep my hands busy while my heart relearned how to be still, without waiting for someone else's vibration to tell me I mattered. I took a part-time job at the city's Women's Community Center, where I led personal finance classes for women who'd been exploited by their own families. They arrived guarded, carrying chaotic account statements and stories that, once I heard them, I knew they had once worn a face like mine. I didn't share everything, just enough to let them know you can survive, without needing anyone's permission. That evening, when I got home, a handwritten letter sat neatly in my hallway mailbox. The name in soft cursive. E. Whitman, Grandview, Missouri. I didn't fully remember the name. Maybe a distant relative. Maybe someone who'd heard me speak at a workshop. I tore the envelope open. Just a few lines on plain paper. I was once the Avery of another family. I thought I had to stay quiet to keep the peace. Because of you, I chose to step out of a role I never signed up for. My brother called me selfish. But for the first time, I slept through the night. Thank you. I folded the letter. Didn't write back. I knew sometimes silence is the clearest, most complete response. The wind from the lake picked up. I heard the curtains flutter, the soft thump of rye leaping onto the sofa, the kettle starting to simmer. And in all those sounds, the one I cherished most was the absence of a phone vibrating with panic from someone demanding I fix what they had broken. Have you ever been in my position? Where your silence was mistaken for surrender? And your kindness treated as an obligation? Have you ever been the one holding it all together, only to be the first to fall apart? If you've lived in a family where love came with terms, where you were forced to pay the price just to be called one of us, I hope this story reminds you. You are not alone. Share your thoughts below. What would you do if you were Avery? Do you believe that sometimes a boundary is a form of love? And if any part of this spoke to something deep inside you, hit follow. There are more real stories ahead about family, boundaries, choices, and the quiet kind of dignity we build for ourselves.